What is a myth? Joseph Campbell would describe it as the secret opening in which inexhaustible energies of the cosmos pour into the human cultural manifestation. Religions, philosophy, art, the social forms of primitive and prehistoric humans, the prime discoveries of science, of technology, the very dreams that blister, seep, and boil from the basic primitive rings of our psyche. This is the myth, and what we explore and discuss in today's episode on Joseph Campbell and the Myth.
It's gotta be this time. The sun starts to set and the moon shall rise.
It has always been the prime function of mythology to write the supply of symbols and to carry the human spirit forward. This is what Joseph Campbell tells us on the definition of a myth. It is a counteraction of constant human fantasies that tie us back to our most basic and primordial selves. He discusses quite a few concepts here as we break down the definition of it, but I would like to note a question on what it means, specifically that of truth. Individuals like to account the word myth with lie, and it's commonly used in that way. In fact, I think it's quite the opposite. The myth, rather than a lie, is a truth beyond articulation. It is a truth that we can't speak of. It is a truth that can only be represented in symbols. It is able to dig deep and explain things that we are completely unaware of as individuals and societies. This isn't always happy. In fact, the human existence is quite dark. The happy endings in fairy tales and myths should not always be read as a contradiction, though, but it's a transcendence of the universal tragedy of our existence. It is a way to contradict that, in which we are able to find greater existential meaning in our existence. This is the birth of the human spirit. This is where we find deeper meaning and value. This is the essence of soul. It is universal, in which the objective world is capable of being transformed and remade and redefined. It's a spirit within the subject is transformed. This is growth and development. It is the tale of becoming, on no longer being what is. This is a circle of life and death. Most mythos begin with the story of the beginning of the universe. But in reality here we see a new engagement. We see this cycle, this circle of life and death, which is something we like to talk about in circle theory quite a bit. To provide context for this, I suggest you go back and watch our first video on Joseph Campbell. But regardless, as we hop in, we discuss this bringing life and death together as these elements of time being made manifest. They are boiling up these primitive concepts of ourself. They are bubbling up through the cosmos and becoming apparent to us. They are shattering the forms of which we define reality. This is the essence of comedy. This is the essence of joy. To be able to shatter the difficult restraints of reality and understand a greater meaning within ourselves. He talks a lot about love as well. The going up and down, that the individual must learn to know and be purged of their contagions, that they must step into their most inner psyche and begin to understand new meaning and truth, to be purged of their faults. This is the story of development, and the myth is the story of us, of who we are. This is an internal process. This is what Jung talks about in dealing with the id and dealing with the collective unconscious. It is a step in which we engage with the collective understanding of the human spirit, of the primitive symbols and understandings of which we all are connected to. Our instincts, our fears, our hopes, and our desires. The ways in which we come to understand them. And become purged of our fears and insecurities. Because we are able to gain new magic. The myth is a way to represent this and pass this on to another generation. What we have discovered in life is transferable to those who come after us. But not through telling somebody to be brave, but in showing them how. This is what the myth offers. And then ultimately, each individual goes on a series of quests. We have our own mythological adventures, in which we must develop and explore and expand on who we are, to become something new. And then we face the hardest challenge that we have, which is to return home with what we have learned, and try to share that with each other. This is where we pick up next week, as we discuss the dreaming unconscious, the realm in which we engage as we enter the deeper side of ourselves. So I will catch you next Thursday at 5 p.m.
watching this week's video on Joseph Campbell. If you enjoyed, please hit the like button, subscribe for future content, and if you learned something today, please let us know in the comments. We'd love to discuss it with you. We'll catch you next time at Circles Theory.